According to Boxing Scene, Conor Benn, welterweight contender, has decided to relinquish his boxing license in the UK. And the alleged charges against Benn for the possibility of he cheating in doping in the sport of boxing are being upheld. What does this mean for Conor Benn and his future in boxing? This will play out very interestingly because Benn, not too long ago, a little bit over a week ago, took to social media and charged that people will have to apologize when his name is cleared in the sport. And he spoke very sternly about this. Will we see Benn turn over a new leaf? Or will this be more of the same regarding Conor Benn going forward in the sport? It's an interesting situation, and we will wait to see how these things play out. Let's talk about it further. Let's talk about Conor Benn and his situation, how it's playing out. The proposed middleweight fight that was supposed to take place against Chris Eubanks Jr. had been canceled after Benn popped dirty for performance-enhancing drugs. We have seen these things play out in the sport of boxing before. But this time, something seemed very strange because there were an assortment of people close to this proposed fight, including the promoter and the father of one of the fighters, that they just knew exactly what was going on. One side didn't want things to proceed ahead, and the other side wanted things to be covered up. I'll leave it up to you to guess which side elected for the cover-up. But according to Boxing Scene, the British Board of Control has announced that welterweight contender Conor Benn has relinquished his license to box, and the misconduct allegations against him have been upheld. Earlier this month, Benn was scheduled to face Chris Eubanks Jr. in a catchweight bout, but the contest was eventually called off. The Daily Mail first reported just a few days before the fight was scheduled to take place that Benn had failed a random drug test on September 23rd. Benn had tested positive for clomiphene, a known fertility drug for women, but is also used to raise testosterone levels in men. The British board would openly prohibit Benn Eubank from moving forward. which led to the cancellation of the entire event. The British board released a statement on the matter. Quote, Conor Benn was called by the board of the BBBofC to attend a hearing to deal with allegations of misconduct pursuant to Rule 25.1.1. The hearing took place on October 21st, 2022. On the morning of the hearing, Mr. Benn voluntarily relinquished his license with the BBBofC. In accordance with its rules and regulations, the board determined the allegations following the hearing at which Mr. Benn was legally represented. The allegations of misconduct against Mr. Benn were upheld. Interesting. So through all of this, Benn found himself stating initially that people were going to have to apologize. But as of today, as far as I know, no soundbite, no social media quote has captured he apologizing to the sport of boxing, to the paying public, to his opponent, to his family, that any remorse on his behalf is present. There's a number of ways that you can take this, but it really takes more, because there are people who still are in denial about this. But you can ask former opponents of Benn, Chris Van der Hearden. You can ask if he feels that his fight with Benn, a knockout victory by Benn, was on the level. Chris Algieri, who suffered a terrible knockout of the year type stoppage against Benn. There are other fighters over the past year whom he's faced that question certain things about his performances, because early in his career, when you find images of how he looked physically, doesn't compare to the way he was going into the Benn fight. I remarked that Conor Benn was beginning to look like the Marvel character Wolverine, because being a slight man of 5'6", 5'7", he was looking on the thicker side of a build like a running back. There were reports that he was already over the catch weight limit of 157 when he was training for this fight. Performance-enhancing drugs in the sport of boxing are very dangerous, people. They are dangerous for the abuser, and the abuser is dangerous to his opponents, because you've already legally been trained to use your hands to inflict damage upon an opponent. Any unnatural enhancements that are illegal call into mind the idea that you may look to commit murder. But even still, through all of this, there is another that you really have to question the ethic of. And that would be no more than Ben's promoter, Ed Hearn. Ed Hearn is still going on about Ben did nothing wrong. He's actually alleging that the test that Ben gave was contaminated. Possibly. Why is it that several of Hearn's fighters have popped dirty, but all of them that are of the native soil of the UK, he's tried to hide and protect, whereas Jarrell Big Baby Miller, he totally threw out to pasture. According to Boxing News 24, Hearn believes there could be contamination during the testing of Conor Benn that resulted in his positive test for the banned drug clomiphene, leading up to the canceled fight with Chris Eubank Jr. Hearn says he's confident that the 26-year-old Ben, who is 21-0 with 14 KOs, is, quote, innocent, end quote. And he'll soon be speaking to the media about his case. Well, if he's already relinquished his boxing license here, Mr. Hearn, does that mean that there is some sort of admission of wrongdoing? Being caught with the smoking gun? I do not understand how a promoter like Ed Hearn is continued to allow to be a part of this sport when so many questionable ethical moments in his dealings arise time and time again. It is a time to take action against these guilty parties before someone loses their life. It was Hearn who was recorded as saying that this information was leaked. Drug testing isn't something that's leaked, Mr. Hearn. When fighters sign up for that, the information is to be made public. You got away with White against Rivas. Same scenario. Even switching up gloves questionably during that promotion, the day of the fight. Mr. Rivas didn't have enough power, support, big enough name to rouse the awareness of the boxing world. But we've kept a close eye. We've been watching. And now this, with Conor Benn, a young man whose name has a foundation in the UK. His father, Nigel Benn, is a legendary middleweight, super middleweight champion and is respected in the sport. Boxing News 24 article goes on to say, Hearn states that Benn's B sample collected by VADA will likely be the same as the A sample. Of course, that doesn't mean that contamination still didn't occur during the testing procedure that was done in the laboratory. In the thousands of testings that have taken place, rare, if any point in time, has anyone stated that they felt that there was contamination. If Ben is found guilty, he'll be given a suspension. With this being his first positive test, it's possible that he'll be given a short suspension rather than a long ban, which some boxing fans have discussed. The levels in this amount, surrounded by the other testing that took place, would lead to suggestion of contamination of some kind in his test, said Eddie Hearn. Everything in the results of this leads to contamination in this. When I talk about contamination, contamination can happen in a lab. Contamination can happen by various different means during a process. The B sample will only come back necessarily negative if there's been a mistake or a contamination in the laboratory. It's the same sample, so 99.9% of the time, the B sample will be exactly the same. It's been requested. I would expect it to come back positive as well. Well, why did we never get the B sample from Dillian Whyte against Oscar Rivas, Mr. Hearn? This is an interesting thing, and people should not let this go. The ship is sinking, and it is time to abandon. Ed Hearn is single-handedly ruining careers. When this news broke that this fight was going to be canceled, Hearn was praying for a postponement. I went on to say, no one in the sport of boxing today takes accountability for anything. No one says, my fault, my bad, I fucked up. Accountability is everything. And in a sport where the objective is to harm and inflict harm on the opponent, performance-enhancing drugs have no place, but we know it exists. That is why there is drug testing. But that is also why there are sorts out there who try to help the cheaters beat the test. When there's a connection between the sources, people need to rear out against them. A campaign needs to go underway to rid the sport of these violators. That's another reason why I believe he's innocent, Hearn said about the absence excuses by Ben. The easy way out of this situation for Conor Benn is to come up with an excuse that would either get him off the hook or give him a shorter suspension time. Think about this. Hearn is still talking about being evasive, people. We can't have this. We can't have this. I will not go on to quote Hearn any further. If you want to read this article from Boxing News 24, it was published, and you can go there. It was published earlier today. But you have to understand that as long as people like Conor Benn are looking to cower behind the skirt of people like Ed Hearn, boxing will always have a dark veil over its face. And that's not the type of bride anyone should want to greet at the altar. This is Stormy B. Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you think about Conor Benn relinquishing his boxing license in the UK. That pretty much means that Hearn will probably take his show on the road. Will you pay to see him? Is it worth your time? Leave comments. Let's discuss. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.